class and got it. I'll start over because I forgot for the record. So I'm Liz with Premier Yarns, and I want to say a quick thank you to Michaels for hosting this class and to all of you for joining me here on a Saturday to crochet with me. If you want to click on here, if you want to say hi in the chat and let me know where you are watching from, that would be great. I am in Louisville, Kentucky, and today we're doing some fun amigurumi crochet. So let me show you what project we have today. So this is the little fox that I'm going to go over with you. And if you were with me 2 weeks ago, I did the little chick. If you missed that one, you can watch the recording video over at michaels.com. In a couple weeks, I'm doing this cute bunny, and then I'm going to do the koala. So look out for those classes too. Those are, you can sign up for those for free at Michaels. And so before I switch over to my hands, I just want to say a quick thing about this little fox. I made him with a worsted weight yarn, which was Craftsmart value. But you can use the exact same pattern to make a bigger fox with our chenille home slim, which is what I use for the koala and the bunny. So you can kind of switch up the yarns if you want to make something a little bigger or even something a little smaller. So you've got like a bulky weight, a worsted weight, and then if you use like a fine weight, that would be like an even smaller little fox. So that's a cool thing about amigurumi. You can sort of switch it up. You can switch up your yarn and your gauge without having to worry so much about the final finished product, because it doesn't matter if you get a little bigger or a little smaller, like it would with like a sweater or a hat. Okay, so let's switch over to my hand so I can let you know what materials we're using. Oh, I think I figured out the audio thing. That's fine. Okay, so if you have any questions while I'm going over everything, just pop it in the chat and I'll make sure to answer everything. This is the yarn that we're using. It's a worsted weight smooth yarn. If you're a beginner, this is perfect for beginners because there's no texture and it's just like a nice, easy weight to work with. We're using the color. This one is clay and this one is off-white. These are called Craftsmart, but they changed the name to Soft Classic. So if you see it as Soft Classic on the pattern, that's what we're referring to. I have my written pattern, which you can print out and work along with me. I have some of these pins. I forget what they're called, just pins. I have a 4.5 millimeter crochet hook to work with this worsted weight yarn. I'm working with a little bit of a smaller hook than I would normally with this yarn, because for amigurumi, you want your stitches to be really tight. So you would go kind of down a bit with your hook. I have some scissors, stitch markers, always very important with the amigurumi, and my yarn needle. And I'm also going to use some of this fiber fill, which I'll show you that when we get to it. That's just to stuff everything. Okay, so if we're all set, I'm just going to jump right into it. And we're going to work from the pattern pretty much. And I'm going to show you all the different steps. So I'm not going to go over actually the whole thing because that would take too long, but I am going to show you every sort of like technique that you need to do the whole thing, because a bit of it is a bit like redundant, like you're doing the same thing over and over. So once you learn a couple of easy techniques, you'll be able to do the whole thing on your own. So let's start with the main color, which is clay. Okay, I'm going to start with my clay. And after you've read all your notes, I'm going to go down to the instructions where it says body with main color, make a magic ring. Here's how you make a magic ring. I'm going to show you that on video so you can see it. This is probably the most difficult thing you have to do is the magic ring. If you can do that, everything else is going to be smooth sailing. Okay. So you're going to take your tail, put it over your palm like this, with the tail end in the front and the one that's connected to the yarn in the back. Wrap it around toward you and then over to make like an X on your finger like that. And then you just rotate your hand and then I just grab it with my pinky to secure it. Okay, now I have this strand and this strand. This strand that's to my left is on top of the other strand. Okay, so then I'm just going to take my hook insert it under the first strand on the right, and then over the next strand on the left, and pull that strand underneath. And as you pull it, you kind of rotate it. And now you've got that on your hook, okay? You've got that loop on your hook. And then I just let all this go. Grab the tail that's on the, that's connected. And then we can make a chain with that, okay? So here we have that loop on the hook, and this is actually the magic ring. And then we can do a chain of 1 just to get started, okay? So let me do that one more time, a little quicker. So over, wrap it around, cross it over, grab with your pinky just to secure it, and then you're going to go under and over, hook it and pull it through. And now you have that first loop on your crochet hook to get started with, okay? You can let go of that. Now get yourself in place to start crocheting, and then you're going to start with a chain of 1. So now I'm ready to work into this ring, okay? And then we're just going to do, and that's, you're going to do a lot of those for this pattern and for all amigurumi patterns pretty much. Okay, so now it says into the magic ring work 6 single crochets. So right into that ring, insert your hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now you have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2. That is 1 single crochet. Okay, let's do that 5 more times because you need 6 total. And I usually just work over this tail. See, there's a tail right here. You can just work right over it. Okay, insert into the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. That's another single crochet. Insert into the ring, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. And I keep this kind of loose, this ring, because we're going to tighten it at the end, but you can tighten it whenever you want. It doesn't really matter. I feel like it's easy just to work into that big sort of hole there. So I have 1, 2, 3 single crochets, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. Just want to make sure I don't miss any questions, because I can't see the chat on my phone, but I can see it in front of me. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. See how I'm counting these? These little V's are a single crochet. So that's a V, that's a V, that's a V, that's a V. That's the top of the single crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now I have my last single crochet into that ring. That's how we're starting out. And then you just take this tail, pull it, and that will tighten everything up to where there's no hole inside. Okay, now that's my first round. So that's your round. For this pattern and for most amigurumi, you're just going to work in continuous rounds. So you're not going to do like a join and a chain 1 like you do with some rounds. We're just going to go around and around, and that makes it so you don't really have that seam. So what we're going to do now is put your stitch marker in the last stitch that you made. So we know, since we're working in continuous rounds, we know that we've completed a round when we get back to that stitch marker. Okay, so now I have do not join. Okay, we did that. And now in round 2, you need to do 2 single crochets in each single crochet, and that's going to increase by 6 stitches because we had 6, and then we'll have 12. So let's do that together. Here is my first single crochet, and I'm just going to go under the 2 loops of the hook with my hook, yarn over, pull up a loop. Now that I have 2 loops on the hook, I'm going to go yarn over and pull through 2. So I worked 1 single crochet into that first single crochet of the round. Now I'm going to do that again into the same stitch. So insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. So now I have 2 single crochets that I worked into that first single crochet. And then you want to do that all the way around. So 2 stitches into each stitch. under the 2 loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, again into that same stitch, and now into the next single crochet under both loops, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2, insert, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2. Now into the next stitch, I'm working 2 single crochets. And into the next, I'm working 2 single crochets. And now here's my last stitch that I have marked. So I'm going to take that out, work 2 single crochets into that last stitch, and put your marker right back on there so you remember the end of the round. And now I have sort of a nice flat circle. Okay, round 2. Now let's head over to round 3, which says single crochet in the next single crochet and then 2 single crochet in the next single crochet. So whenever we do 2 single crochets into 1 stitch, that's an increase. So sometimes in a pattern, you'll see it, it'll just say increase in next stitch. That just means work 2 single crochets in that stitch. So on the next stitch of the round, which is right here, because this is the last one that I have marked, we are going to work 1 single crochet. And then on the next stitch, we are going to increase. So work 2 single crochets, 1 and 2. And on the next stitch, we are going to work 1. And now 2 for my increase. And 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and now on the last stitch, just like we did before, 2 single crochets, and then put your marker right back in that last stitch. So it's always a good idea to count your stitches to make sure you're on the right track. Okay, so this is the last stitch. You can count back from the last stitch, or you can go over to the first stitch and count from there. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. I have 18 single crochets. And my pattern tells me that on round 3, I should have 18 single crochets. So we know we're on the right track. Let's do a couple more like that. And then once we get the hang of just doing increases, we can move on to color changes, decreases, and a couple of the other pieces. Okay, so round 4. Now, the thing about making a flat circle is it's going to kind of repeat the same pattern. So as you can see, we just did a single crochet in the next single crochet and then an increase. And now for round 4, we're going to do single crochet in the next 2 single crochets and then an increase. And then for round 5, single crochet in the next 3 and then an increase. And then in the next 4 and then an increase. So it's going to, if you do it in that pattern where you just move up 1 stitch every 4, every 5, every 6, every 7, you can just infinitely do that and have just a huge, big, just a huge flat circle. Okay. So it's kind of one of those things that once you do it a few times, it's super easy to remember. Okay. So we are on round 4, right? Yeah, 4. Okay. So I'm going to do single crochet in the next 2. So that's 1 and 2. And then do your increase. So 2 stitches into this one. 1, 2 stitches. And now single crochet in the next 2. 1, 2. and then your increase, 2 stitches. And single crochet in the next 2, and then your increase. Now into the next 2, 1, 2, and then your increase. So if you, oops, I only did that in 1 loop. Make sure I go through both loops. 2, and then my increase. So if you lose your place, just go back and count. 1, 2, increase. Yeah, see, I lost my place, but that's okay. What I can do if I lose my place, because you start talking or something, just pull it back. Well, you can count and see, but sometimes it's hard to see where you put 2 stitches and where you only put 1. So if it's really small like this, I'll just pull it back to my last stitch, and then I'll just start that round over again. Or you can count and try to figure out where you made the mistake. Either way works. You just have to start over again. So that's super easy. So now once you do all these rounds where you're doing the same thing over and over, you're working single crochets into single crochets and then increasing when the pattern tells you to increase. By the end of round 10, you should have 60 single crochets, and then you are going to need to change colors. Okay, so you can see what I did here. I'm going to show you on this little sample. So I did my increases around and around and around. And then when I got to a certain number, I stopped increasing. And that's why it came up like this. If I kept increasing at the rate I was increasing, it would just stay a flat circle. Once you stop increasing, it's going to start to become like a tube or a circle like this. So at the end of round 10, I've increased up to 60 single crochets. And then for rounds 11 through 13, I just did 1 single crochet around. So I'll show you how to do that. So once you get to round 11, with the same color, you're just going to work 1 single crochet into each single crochet like this. So you should have the same number of stitches because we're not doing any increasing. We're not doing any decreasing. We're just working an even number of stitches to stop the circle from expanding outward. And you're going to get different shapes depending on when you stop increasing and where you start decreasing. So see, now my circle's already like folding upward because I didn't do any increases on that round. So now after you do a couple rounds even, then we want to switch to the contrast color like we did here. So at the last stitch of the round is where you want to switch your colors. So here's my marker. It's my last stitch. I'm going to take that out. And I'm going to insert my hook under both loops, just like I'm doing a stitch. Yarn over, pull that loop through. Now that you have 2 loops on your hook, you're going to stop right here and switch your colors. Because at this point is where you want to complete the stitch with the new color. So I'm just going to take my white color, off white, and then just place that tail onto your hook and just pull that through the last 2 loops of the stitch, and then you can just tighten it so everything is snug. So now what you can see what happened is this stitch is a complete stitch in the clay color, and you can't see the white at all. But the white is has a loop on the hook now ready to make the next stitch. So the next stitch is going to be white. And the last stitch is completely in the clay color. Don't forget your marker. And now you're just going to finish the round with the white. So I work over the tails, you can, or it's just easy to work over the tails for a few stitches so they stay in place. So I'm going to go under the next stitch and keep those tails right there. Yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, pull through 2 loops. There's my next single crochet. Now we'll do one more stitch over the tails. Keep the tails right there, yarn over, and pull through. Okay, so now I have 2 single crochets in the white color, and my tails are sort of tucked away enough to where they're not going anywhere. And at the end, you can just weave those in with your tapestry needle. And the pattern says, now we're not really at this place in the pattern, you're going to have more once you get to the color change, but just for the purpose of the class, we're going to do 3 more rounds in the white color. So just 3 rounds even, no increasing and no decreasing. Just so I can show you what it looks like at the end. And now when I get to my last stitch, take out your stitch marker and then work the last stitch of white. See, so there's a little bit of a jog from where you change the colors, but you could just start the next round and it looks pretty seamless. So you can see this one, there's where I added the new color. So if you have like the little jog right there, just that'll be like the back of your piece, right? So then you put the face on the front so you can't even see that. I'm going to skip around a little bit just because I want to show you all of the techniques that you need to know. For the rest of the body, we just went through almost everything that you need to know. I just need to show you how to do the decreasing, which is written as invisible decrease. But let's skip over to, where do I want to skip over to? I'm going to skip over to the tail, because at the tail, we're going to do another color change, and then we're going to start decreasing. So I can show you how to do that with the tail. With the body, I showed you how to do all the increases. I showed you how to work even. I showed you how to change color. And then the only thing you have to do for the body after you've changed the color is start decreasing. So we're going to do that with the tail so I can show you how to decrease. Okay, let's see. I started here with my little sample. I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds done. So I'm on the 5th round. And oh no, not this one. That's not my tail. This is that's my nose. This is my tail. Okay, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Yeah, so I finished on round 5 of the tail. Now, if you look at my nose and my tail, you can see it's a little bit different. That's because on the nose, I started with 6 single crochets into the magic ring. And then with the tail, I started with only 3 single crochets. So that's why you're going to get like a pointier end, right? This one's more round, this one's more pointy. So depending on what kind of shape you want to achieve, you're going to, that's going to be dependent on when you do your increases and decreases and how many stitches you start out with. So for my tail, we're going to change colors again. My marker here, we are on round 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I did through round 5, and then it says at the end of round 5, you're going to change to the main color, and then we should have 15 single crochets. And then with the main color, we're going to single crochet in each single crochet around, and that is round 6. Okay, so here is my last stitch of round 5. And I'm just going to undo that because I want to change color here. And remember, you have to change color at the last yarn over of the last stitch of the current round, or the working round. Oh, and this is what the tail looks like, just so you can get a visual of what we're doing. So we're making a much like thinner sort of shape, okay? All right, so the last round, I'm going to change color again. Last stitch, I haven't completed the stitch. I'm here where I have 2 loops on the hook, so I'm just going to join that next color by placing the tail right on the hook and pulling it through. And now I have this stitch that's all in white, and my next color is on my hook ready to go. And you can just work a couple of stitches over those tails. So here's my next stitch. I'm going to yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through 2. And that's the first stitch of round 6. And don't want to forget to place your marker there so you don't get mixed up. Okay, and we'll do one more working over the tails to keep those secure. Yarn over, pull through 2. That's my next single crochet. And now you just work a single crochet in each single crochet around, and we should have 15. Last single crochet, put your marker back in. Make sure we have 15. So I'm going to cut these just to get them out of the way. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and then on the 15th, that's my last stitch. So you have 15 stitches on your piece at the end of round 6, and that's with the main color, which we have. And now we need to start decreasing. So the shape will start to go down like this. Can't think of the word, but it's gonna get smaller. It's gonna decrease. So to decrease the shape, you decrease the stitches. Now single crochet in the next 3 single crochets, and then do your invisible decrease, and then do that again. So it's basically the same sort of it's like the same rate as you do the increases. You're just going backwards and decreasing. Okay, so let's do single crochet in the next 3. 1, 2, and 3. And now I want to invisible decrease. So what I need to do is take this stitch and this stitch and make them 1. So make 1 stitch out of 2 stitches. So I have fewer stitches on the round. So I'm going to start with working under the first loop only. So here's the 2 loops, right? There is a back. It's hard to see because my hook is the same color as this yarn. Let me show you like this. Okay. 2 loops, right? There's a back loop. That's the one in the back. And there's a front loop. That's the one in the front. With just a regular old stitch, you go under both loops. If the pattern tells you to go under the back loop only, like you do with like ribbing, you would go under only this stitch. If it tells you to go in the front loop only, you would go into this stitch. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go into the front loop of this stitch and the front loop of the next stitch. And it's a little harder to see those loops. With this yarn, it's not too bad, but when you're working with a textured yarn, like this one has a little bit of fuzz on it, the fuzz sort of hides the loops a little bit. So it can be tough to see your front loop from your back loop. Not so much with this chenille, but if you get something really, really fuzzy, like eyelash yarn or something like that, it can be difficult to see those stitches. So that's why I say start out with a nice smooth worsted weight when you're getting started, so you have an easier time seeing your stitches. Okay, so we're going to go to do the invisible decrease. We're going to go into only the front loop of the first stitch. And now don't do any yarn overs. Go directly, so move your hook back down and go directly into the first loop of the next stitch, the one beside that one that you just went into. And now I can do my yarn over, pull through both of those loops. And now I have 2 loops on my hook, and I'm just going to yarn over to complete the single crochet. And now if you look closely, you cannot even see that we did any sort of decreasing. It just looks like a regular stitch. So that's why it's called invisible decrease. Okay, let's do that a couple more times. We're going to do 1, 2, just 3 regular single crochets, 3, and now an invisible decrease. So I'm going to go under the first loop, the front loop, excuse me, of the next stitch, and then directly into the front loop of the stitch right beside it, right next to it. Then yarn over, pull through, and I'm going to pull through both of those loops. Now that you have 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through those 2. We have 1 more on this round. So 1, 2, 3 single crochets, and an invisible decrease, which is going to be the last. Okay, so the invisible decrease is worked over 2 stitches. So I know that I'm right. I know that I'm on the right track because I have 2 stitches left. So those last 2 stitches, we're going to combine to make them 1 stitch. Okay. So if you had 3 or only 1 stitch left at this point, then you messed up somewhere. You got to go back and do your stitch count. So got the last 2 stitches. You go into the first loop of the next stitch, and then into the first loop of the next stitch. Yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. 2 loops on the hook, yarn over, pull through 2. Okay, so at this point, you'll want to count your stitches to make sure you did all your decreases right. So counting back from the last stitch, which is right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So I have 12 single crochets on the round, and according to my pattern, I should have 12 single crochets. So I know I'm doing that right. Now we're going to let's do a couple more invisible decreases. It says single crochet in the next 5, invisible decrease, single crochet in the next 5. So this one doesn't really go with the pattern because it's the way the shape is. We need to do like a sharper decrease. So single crochet in the 5 single crochets, and then invisible decrease. Let's do that for the tail. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and invisible decrease. So here's first loop, next loop, both of those loops are on your hook, yarn over, pull through both of those loops, yarn over, pull through the 2 loops on the hook, 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. So there should be 5 stitches left, which there were. And you just work a single crochet into each of those 5. See, so we did single crochet in 5 stitches, then invisible decrease, then single crochet in 5. So we only did 1 decrease for that round, and we should have 11 single crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. See, it's already looking like a little tail. So the rest is basically like that. Like that, we're going to do 4 single crochets, 1 decrease, and then 5 single crochets till we have 10. And then at that point, it says to stuff the tail. So you can stuff the tail a little bit, but really you don't even need to, but I guess you could. I did, but it's a little stiff. Like, so if you want it to be a little less, like more foldy, like these ears, see the ears, I only put a little stuffing in, so they kind of are like more floppy. You can do that too. You don't have to stuff everything. Like, see what I did with the paws, I didn't stuff them. Okay, so then you're just going to complete a few more rounds for the tail, which is basically what we've already been doing, decreasing and regular single crochets. For the ears, I'm just going to show you those because let's do the paws. Let me show you the paws. These are the paws. This is what they look like, no stuffing. And for the paws, if you read the pattern, it's basically similar to what we've been doing. You start with the magic ring. You do 4 single crochets, you do some increasing, and then you do some decreasing. So exactly what we've already been doing. And when you fasten off, just leave a long tail so you can sew those on. So that's what the paws look like. The ears, maybe I'll do 1 ear with you, and then the nose, and then we can put it all together. Okay, so the ear is similar to what we did with the tail. We're going to start with 4 single crochets, and then increase to 8 single crochet in the next, increase, and then you don't have to do any decreasing. So we just started with 4, we did some increases, and then you end up with this kind of almost like a cone shape. And that's what the ear is like. And then I'll show you how we can sew that one on. But that's the ear, same exact thing what we've been doing. And this is the nose with the white color, same thing that we've been doing. Started with 6, did some increases, and then we stopped increasing and worked a couple even. So we have the nose. Let's do some detail on this nose so we can sew it on together. So I can show you how to do that. I'm going to use my Craftsmart, but you can use, if you have like a thin sort of thread or any, let's just like scrap yarn that you have anywhere, because we don't need too much of this. So once you get the nose to here, you can do it like this, or you can do it once you've sewn it on. It doesn't really matter. Either way is fine. You could do it like this too, where you have like a nose part, and then this part, and then these two. You see this guy like that. So I don't know, this guy looks a little cuter, I think. Let's try this one. You can really just play around with it and make it however you want. You can do just the little triangle part, or do like the whole little, I don't know what you would call that on his face. Okay, so I'm gonna just thread my black yarn. And I'm gonna come in from the back and just kind of eyeball it. If you don't feel comfortable eyeballing it, you can take your pins and mark where you want to place your nose. But I usually just eyeball it, and then I end up having to take it out and redo it if it doesn't look good. So let's just start at the bottom, right? So let's say this is where the triangle is. Come in from there. Then we can do up here. So go back in. And I'm coming back from the back to the front this way. And try to go right next to it. So this is kind of just like embroidering, and it's one of those things that you have to just practice to get it right, because the placement can be tricky. So if you want to do it easier, just do like a smaller nose. Right here, I'm going to put another one because I feel like there's a space right there. Here. Okay, and now at the very end, I'm going to come back through the back. I'm going to try to make a long part right here. So I'm going to come back maybe around here, and then go back in from the front to the back to make the little I don't know what that part of its face is called. Whatever that is. Okay, so that's basically it. It takes some playing around with to get it to look perfect. And then for the eyebrows, you're going to do something similar like that, and the eyes do something similar like this. Yeah, so once you get that done, we'll cut all this stuff off and keep a long tail, because we're going to take this tail and sew it right on to the body. And then I just take all these pieces and stuff them right in there, because you don't really need to weave them in at this point. They're not going anywhere. And then you can just either sew it on with this tail that's still connected, or you could just grab a new piece and sew it on. So we're going to sew that right onto there. Okay, so let's go to the body and stuff this guy so we can sew the nose on, and then we can sew the ears and the paws on, and we'll do the eyes last if we still have time. So I think I got to round. Let me count my stitches and see what round we're at here. See, and basically, like I was saying, this is all kind of the same repetitive thing, just with different stitches or stitch numbers, and when and how often you increase and decrease, but all the techniques are exactly the same. You start out with a magic ring, you increase, stop increasing, you work even, you decrease, you change colors. It's basically that all the way through. So let me see, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31, probably 32, I'm guessing. 30. Okay, so here's where I ended on round 21. So I should have 30 single crochets there. And then at this point, it says to stuff the body. You can stuff it at this point. There's still enough room. You just don't want to close it too much to where there's not enough room to stuff it. Okay, but we can start stuffing it at this point. So I can show you how to close it up, okay? So I left this long tail to crochet with. I'm going to put these other tails in there. I don't bother weaving them in when they're going to be stuffed inside. You can if you want, but I never bother doing that. Like I would with like a sweater or a hat or something. Take a little bit of your stuffing and just put it in there. And this part is definitely takes some finesse because sometimes you stuff it and the shapes are just goofy and you have to move it around a lot to get a nice shape. And you don't want to overstuff it and you don't want to understuff it. And I'm using the see this, but if you can see the other camera, you can see me there. The Loops and Threads Classic Fiber Fill. That's the best because it's nice and light. One time I tried to stuff one thing with like a bunch of leftover yarn that I had, but it was very heavy and it didn't mold the way I wanted to. So I don't know, maybe you'll have better luck with it, but I was trying to like, recycle. But this just makes a nicer shape and it's nice and lightweight. Okay, so once you have the shape that you want, you can start closing it up. And to close it up, you just continue decreasing all the way. Let's do a couple of rounds so you can see what I mean. Right here. And 30. So I want to do, remember I ended here. So you want to do single crochet in the next 3 and then invisible decrease. So let's do a bunch of those. So 1, 2, 3. And it does feel different, like when you've got a shape like this, than if you're just working like a flat piece of fabric, and invisible decrease. Okay, here's my next stitch. 1, 2, 3, and invisible decrease. 1, 2, 3, and invisible decrease. 1, 2, 3, invisible decrease. 1, 2, 3, and invisible decrease. I know we went over it, but remember it's into the front loop, into the front loop of the next stitch, yarn over, pull through those 2, yarn over, pull through 2 loops on the hook. And I have 1, 2, 3 more single crochets. And then just like before, on your last 2 stitches, you'll do that invisible decrease to make those last 2 stitches into 1. So through the front loop, yarn over, pull through, and yarn over, pull through the 2 loops on the hook. And then you're just going to keep doing that, and the pattern will tell you to continue until you get to 12 single crochets, right? So continue decreasing. The hole is going to get smaller and smaller. You can like adjust your filling at that point if you feel like you have too much and it's too tight, or if you have too little, you can stuff it a little bit more. And then invisible decrease around till you have 6. And then once you have 6 stitches, you just thread that needle and close it. So you take the tail, thread it closed, right? Because it'll be, the hole be like about this big at that point. It'll be very tight and small. So you just thread it and you won't see it. So let's see what my little guy looks like. This is the starting, and this is where I ended. You can't even see it. You should yeah, this is where we started, this is where I ended, but you can't even really tell. You just thread that through and then put it through the whole body. So like, let me show you, even though it's not completely closed, just so you have an idea. So I'm going to pull this loop right through. Let's say this is my very last stitch. Pull that through. Now take that yarn tail. And remember, you should only have 6 at this point, if this is just showing you. So I would take it and I would go across under those 2 stitches, pull it tight, and then over there's only going to be 6. So you're only going to have to do it through a few. Pull it tight. And then once it's all closed up, you just take that, take this needle, and then I just shove it all the way through and out the back like this. Pull it through and then cut it. And then just, that's it. It's completely invisible. Yeah, so I mean, obviously it's not going to look like that. You're only going to have 6 stitches and they're going to just close up nicely. And then you can just pull that last tail through and it's not going to go anywhere. Okay, so and then you're going to find a nice place on your face. So let's say right here, you say, okay, this looks nice here. Or you can do it where the jog is, but like you can take the nose and cover the jog with it. Or you could just leave that on the back. I guess look at yours and see where it looks best. So wherever you think it looks best is where you're going to make the face. And then you're just going to take the nose. You could put a little, I have a bunch of yarn in there, but you could put a little stuffing in there if you wanted. And we're just going to sew that on. Let me sew it so you know how to sew this stuff on. I'll show you how to do that. I'm going to get a new piece of yarn. Obviously, we're going to use the same colors. So when I'm sewing on the paws, I'm going to use the clay color. When I sew on the nose, I'm going to use the white. And this is where the pins come in handy too, because you can say, okay, let's say I want it right here. Before you sew it on, you can pin it in place to make sure you like how it looks. Like maybe you want it higher or maybe you want it lower. What you can do is pin that in place and then like maybe put the eyes on. Okay, so say, okay, I want the eyes like right here and here. You want them closer together. I usually just eyeball it, but sometimes the pattern will tell you like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 rounds down, but you know, you can get creative and put them wherever you want. So if you want them closer together, I see them a lot like really close together. You can put them like that. If you want them closer to the side of the nose, you can put them like that. So just trying to get an idea of how you think they look cute. This one, I would have preferred the eyes a little bit closer together. I think they're too far apart. So like, just, you know, figure out what, see, like these are a little bit closer together. I think it makes the face look cuter. So just play around with it and see where you want those eyes. And then you're just going to embroider the eyes on like kind of like we did with the nose. Just make it a little bit smaller. Or you can use like safety eyes. You can use felt eyes. You can glue eyes on, or you can make a magic ring with your black. You can take your black yarn, make a magic ring, work 6 single crochets into that magic ring. 3, 4, 5, 6. Like if you're not comfortable with the embroidery part, because it gets kind of tricky, you can make a little like that, right? Let's see. So there's my last round. My last stitch. What I'm going to do is just go into that next stitch, right? Like I was starting a new round, yarn over, pull that through, and then pull it through the loop on the hook to join that. And now I have a little eye like this. So that might even be cuter than embroidering it on, and definitely easier. So you can sew that eye on. So however you want to do, you can just use the felt ones too. They have some really cute felt ones. That's entirely up to you. But what you want to do is make sure you have all these pieces, pin them on. And then once you've got them all pinned on in place where you like it, you can start sewing them. So now here's the ear, right? Don't stuff the ear. You take the ear and you just kind of fold it, and then you curl it a little bit like this. So it looks like this. So then when you take the ear and you place it on to where it's curled a little bit, and then I'll pin that in place. And say, okay, that's a good placement for that one. And then you put the other one right next to it, move it around to where it's so it's nice and even and everything. Probably one of the worst things to do is just, and I've done it, is just start sewing everything. Just like, so I'm going to sew this nose on right here before I have everything else where I want it, because then you don't really realize that things might be uneven, or you're like, oh, now there's not enough room for the eyes, or there's not enough room for the ears. Or like, I wish, like, it doesn't look as cute now because the eyes are too wide apart or whatever. So the best thing to do is just get your pins, pin everything in place to exactly where you want it. Let's see if we can even pin our little paws. Pin your paws down at the bottom. If you want them further apart, if you want them closer together, like here, they're far apart. If you want them closer together like this, if you want them turned this way or that way, just pin it all in place. So that way everything looks good before you start sewing it on. Because once you've sewn it on, it's really a pain to get to undo it. It's easy to undo a round that you've crocheted, but it's very difficult to try to unsew things that you've tightly sewn onto a piece. So let's say I've got everything pinned into place, and I just want to start sewing this on. I can take my needle and thread. You can come in from anywhere, like you can come in all the way back here if you want. But with this, I would, come in closer because it's close, but just go under a stitch, right? So go under that stitch, and I'm just going to whip stitch it. So pull this one through. And now I'm going to kind of go over like this, grab another stitch here, and then go under this stitch and pull it through. And then go under another stitch, pull it through. And sometimes things shift around when you're doing this, so stop, make sure everything looks good. Under another stitch, pull it through. And so on. Okay. And that's it. And then that's just going to attach that. And then, I'm kind of doing it fast, but you can see you don't really see where it's been sewn on or anything. And then once you've gotten all the way around, you're just going to push that pin right through like we did before, push it all the way through to the back and cut it off like this. Just take your pin and shove in if there's anything left of it. shove it in there so you can't see what's left. And so I had to go through it fast because, like I said, there's a lot of different pieces, but everything I showed you is all you need to do. I just need to do them step by step as the pattern calls for. I didn't get any questions, so I guess that means everybody understands what I was doing. So if you have any questions, I will take them now. But if no one has anything, then I would like to say thank you to Michaels, and thank you to all of you guys for joining me today. And I hope you enjoyed the class. And I hope you come back next time for the bunny and the koala. Okay, guys, have a great rest of your weekend.